Hey, this is Joe. Whoa, hold on, man. I got the wrong frame up. This is the Two Shots podcast, I guess we're doing tonight. Hold on. Let's see if I can change this. There we go. Let me go ahead and adjust this thing too, because we're going to need that for tonight. All right, there we go. Had a little bit of a malfunction, but now this is Joe of the Spurs Takeover. Started the live stream with the wrong overlay. That's not a good look. Whoops. Well, we're joined tonight by our good friend Jonas Clark. Hey, Jonas, say hi to everybody. All right, so basically, this is going to be a show that it's not going to make anybody happy, especially if you're a Spurs fan. The Spurs, they just looked awful, especially in that final quarter of play. In the fourth quarter, they went a stretch of 4 minutes and 20 seconds without scoring a field goal. We finally had DeMar DeRozan, grow a pair and actually go to the go aggressively to the bucket and get to the stripe. Everybody was just kind of standing around, settling for jump shots and trying to shoot too early into the shot clock. I didn't think they really gave themselves a chance on the offensive front. They got away from that real nice pick and pop play that they had going in between Dejounte and LMA early in the third quarter that produced those back-to-back buckets. They really he Dejounte really got LMA going with that little pick and pop. He got comfortable. He was in a nice spot of the floor where he's gonna be able to knock down a jumper, and I feel like they kind of got away from that. DeMar DeRozan's also gonna always go to the ISO play, and go and get his, be aggressive going to the rim. But you needed to see a little bit more production out of the Spurs from the offensive front and also defensively. They were once again late in transition defense, and I had talked about that on the Locked On Spurs podcast with Jeff Garcia earlier today. That was one of our keys to victory. We had said that if you do not get back on transition defense, you were going to have some issues moving forward trying to stop this Atlanta Hawks team. And sure enough, that's one of the issues that the Spurs had tonight. What was your observations, Jonas? I got your text, by the way. I don't know if it's so much of a road problem as it might be an actual issue with the Spurs again. Everybody saw the same thing in tonight's game. The lack of consistency on the defensive front, and that's really causing them some grief, especially where the fans are calling out, what's going on before plays transpire. And, of course, they always have issue with LMA and DeMar DeRozan. They've been very critical of them through these 7 games early on in the season. How they kind of disappear at key moments of the game. They might be onto something, but like I said, it's still 7 games into the season. Let's kind of progress a little bit more so we can go ahead and have something to gauge their performance by. And we look at the stats, especially on NBA.com, and you can see the shooting charts, and you see a lot of red, and you don't see a lot of green in there. So they're very observant. The Spurs fans are, and they're calling them out, at times, and it's inconsistencies across the board. And like I said, we're only 7 games into the season, but you can already see that there's going to be some problems moving forward for the rest of the season, and that ponders a question, Jonas. Is this going to be what the Spurs are going to look like? Maybe a little bit better as far as their offense goes, but their defense. Do you think this is the normal?
and really maybe get a final push in that game. But as DeJounte starts to come off that minutes restriction and maybe gets to play a little bit more, I think that we'll see this defense really even out. And unfortunately, that is a glaring issue in itself because when DeJounte is not on the court is when we're having our problems. So what he can't play 48 minutes, especially coming off of an injury like his ACL. So I don't know what they're going to do about it. And I was telling you before we got started here, Joe, I really, I really want some nasty from Pop. I need some nasty from Pop because I just felt there were too many times where he got a little frustrated and just went back and sat down on the bench as opposed to really taking on one of these referees who blew a lot of calls tonight.
Yeah, there were some phantom calls there, especially with DeJounte Murray. He had 5 fouls on the night. Some of them were very questionable, but that happens when you're on the road. You're not gonna get you're not gonna get those hometown calls like you normally do while you're here at the AT&T Center. Unfortunately, poor officiating is part of the game, especially while you're on the road. So that's
It
something
is, but
that's
you gotta fight that. You gotta fight that a little bit more.
yeah.
Fight for your guys, and they'll turn around and fight for you.
Yeah, that's what you were telling me earlier. You wanted to see some nasty. You basically what
Exactly.
you're asking for is you want Coach Pop to get fired up and get thrown out of the game. Are you wanting to see Becky Hammond coach?
It would set history. I think that we're going to see it happen at some point anyway. But no, that's not my reason for doing so. I think that just there's a little extra incentive there to do it. But really, he needs to inspire these guys and let them know that he's going to fight for them. Like I said, and he has a military background. He gets this, right? You go to bat for your guys, and they'll step up even more for you. And I think that that's maybe the incentive we need right now. And that nasty, some aggression. We want aggression from the guys.
Hey, I'm gonna go ahead and read some comments. With shout out to you, Frank Ramirez. He says, "What's up, Joe? Hey, Frank." Doris Campano Basco. She says, "Hey guys," and Doris actually had something. She said, "Where was it? There it is."
She
She
said,
goes, "It is
yeah.
time to really get rid of Aldridge." She said, "Where is Dylan Emery?" He laughed out loud. Frank Ramirez says he can't hear. I took care of the issue. I got Jonas's audio going so you all can hear his lovely voice here coming across the airwaves.
Oh, I don't know about that.
It said
But
Marco is.
that's
They said something else here. Manny Fresco says Marco is also becoming a liability on both ends of the floor. Oh
it's true.
man, yeah, dude, that's becoming a problem, and I think it's becoming more evident as we get further and further along in the season. When is Coach Pop gonna start pulling his minutes and giving his minutes maybe to somebody else?
Well, who else are you going to give him to? Maybe Damari Carroll is the one to fill that role, but he's been very vocal about how Lonnie's coming along and how he's not pleased with how Lonnie's coming along. So and Lonnie continued to look a little rough out there tonight. Making just some small errors and this isn't a system, and I know guys on TV too address this, where this isn't a system where we like to throw guys out there to the water and just have them learn their way, sink or swim. You develop them and then you slowly bring them along. Uh, and you can kind of see where Lonnie's having that issue. That's where I say, I mean, if you want to sit Marco, who are you going to bring in place of him? It's not going to be Lonnie Walker. We all want to see Lonnie, but it's not going to be Lonnie. So is it going to be Damari
Why not,
Carroll?
Jonas? Why not, Jonas?
Uh, if you're asking me why not on Damari,
No,
that's
I'm
the
talking
question I
about
have
Lonnie.
because I think
Why
that
not some Lonnie, man? You
uh,
know Spurs Twitter wants Lonnie in there.
eh, Pop still isn't happy, and he has reason again tonight to be displeased with Lonnie's performance. I'd like to see Damari Carroll maybe start to get some more minutes in place, more
Yeah, let's go
three-point
ahead and
production
talk
out.
about let's talk about
Question with
some of the
LaMarcus
stats.
Aldridge.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and talk about some of these
Uh huh.
stats for tonight. You had LaMarcus Aldridge. He had 14 points on the night. DeMar DeRozan, 22. We're gonna go off with the starters. We
Oh
had Trey
yeah,
Lyles, 8. DeJounte Murray, 19 minutes. He only had 3 points. He got outplayed
and
badly
5 fouls.
and 5 fouls. Some of those were phantom fouls. I'm gonna go ahead and give him that. Some of those were phantom fouls, but when you look at the guard play, which is one of the matchups that I was keeping a keen eye on, DeJounte Murray, he needs to get baptized here, but by some of the better guards in the NBA. And this was a perfect example of him going up some of the upper echelon guards. And Trey Young, man, he went off. He had 29 points. He played 30 minutes. So DeJounte has to do a little bit better in that regards when it comes to these matchups. I think foul trouble had a lot to do with what he was able to do out there on the court, which kind of, maybe caught him out
Right.
of rhythm a little bit. But he needs to find ways to still be able to contribute and get to the stripe or, be able to get some of these much needed points because we do need his offense along with his defense. I thought he did a decent job enough, especially in that third quarter, getting LMA his touches, getting him in the correct positions with the little pick and pop play I like so much. But that just didn't seem to last very long. They kind of reverted back to let's just go ahead and shoot early into the clock, and that just seemed to get everybody out of rhythm, and they just never seemed to recover, especially going into the fourth quarter. They just weren't, in rhythm. They weren't knocking down the shots that they wanted, and you got to kind of attribute that to some of the defense, that the Atlanta Hawks were playing. And not only that, but Atlanta
Right.
is dangerous in the open court, and they sure enough were able to run in the open court because of the lack of transition defense once again. So the Spurs got some problems, Jonas. I know that you've made your keen observations, but what did you think about what the Atlanta Hawks were able to do tonight?
Well, I mean, they definitely earned tonight's win, right? When Trey wasn't hitting from outside, in the first half, he again, like I said, he had that, and the stats show he only had 1 point in the first half, but they were really aggressive in the paint in right from the get go. Actually, Jabari Parker had a great night early on. I think he paced off or tapered off and maybe had finished about 15 points or less. I don't have
Yeah,
the
Jabari
sheet.
Parker, he had 19 points on the night.
Wow, there you go. And that speaks to it. And he's their backup big man. Losing Josh Johnson, I think it was. They lost earlier today
Yeah,
to the suspension. I don't know if he's going to fight that at all, but suspension for HGH, and to have that backup Jabari, who kind of got it, worked his way out of Milwaukee, and then worked his way out of Chicago. Like, wow, okay, so there's a lot to give credit to. That's really what it comes down to. You just got to give credit to the Hawks. They
yeah, they
they
kind
played a
of
better
out
game.
hustled.
They stuck around long enough. And something to note there, I know you got the box score right in front of you there. Outscored 38-22. The Hawks outscored the Spurs 48-22 in the fourth. We blew that 78-70 point lead.
Yeah.
That can't happen.
Not only that, but let's take a look at the team stats. I want to see what really transpired here. The Spurs shot 41.8% on the night, connecting on 38 of 91 field goal attempts,
Oof.
while the Atlanta Hawks shot 40. They were shooting 47.8% on the night, connecting on 43 of 90 of their field goal attempts. 3 pointers. The Hawks connected on 11 out of 30, and they shot 36.7% from beyond the arc today. The San Antonio Spurs only connected on 8 of their 33 attempts from the
Yep.
3 point line. They were shooting a dismal 24.2% beyond the arc tonight. Free throw attempts, the Spurs, they were the aggressors, and they got to the free throw line a lot more than the Atlanta Hawks. The Spurs were there 23 times compared to the Atlanta Hawks 16. So I mean, the rebounding edge went to the Hawks. They out rebounded the Spurs 48-41, and the assist edge went to the Hawks. They had more assists than the Spurs, 22-18. Points in the paint. The Atlanta Hawks once again were dominant in the paint against the San Antonio Spurs. They outscored us in the paint 50-34. I mean that that once again was an issue that we had against the Lakers, where the Lakers outscored the Spurs in the paint. That just goes to
Joe,
show you that they're having issues with their interior defense.
there's a stat that you listed off there that was the key difference. And no, it's not the 3-pointers, because for the most
No.
part we kept pace. It's the free throw percentage.
Yeah.
Is shooting just under 69%, solid number there. But 7 missed free throws, right, makes this a 3-point game.
Yeah. The little things, man.
If you add that in there, a 1-point game. It's a 1-point
Yeah.
game, and that's the stuff that we preach. Pops is do the fundamentals. That's the Spurs, the way that the Spurs operate, and to have that issue, something is off. Something's very much so off, and I hope they get it figured out, because I think it was either you or Wesley that brought this up a little while ago, Joe, about the Spurs playing to the level of their competition.
Yeah, I believe that was
We look
Wesley.
being able to hang with the Lakers, being able to hang with the Clippers, and then here you are against the Atlanta Hawks, and you collapse in the fourth quarter. I think that it's still too early to really be able to diagnose how a season's going to go, because you do still have DeJounte on that minutes restriction, but DeJounte should have been just more of an addition, not a subtraction, and not to where we almost feel like the rest of the team has regressed since last year instead of moving.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if there's going to be some lineup changes sooner rather than later. I think something needs to happen, primarily with that second unit. I think with the starters, that's probably going to be solidified moving forward. We might see Pop, mess with that starting 5 just a little bit, depending on, once again, matchups moving forward, and seeing who they're going to play from night to night. But I think that second unit, something needs to change there. I don't know what it is, but somebody needs to get yanked in Marco Beninelli. I know everybody is in agreement with that, and they can see that. But again, who are the minutes going to go to? I know Spurs Twitter wants some Lonnie. I know that, Damari Carroll's just sitting there riding the bench, and I think he's going to be able to play better defense. He's not so much as a defensive liability that Marco Beninelli is. And I think if we would have had Damari Carroll out there playing defense, maybe that perimeter defense would have been a little bit better, because, I mean, let's face it, the Hawks did knock down a couple more 3-pointers than the San Antonio Spurs did. And Trae Young got hot. If they would have had somebody out there guarding the perimeter, being able to put hands to the face, maybe some of those shots would have bounced off the rim, or, gone in the Spurs' favor to get that 50-50 ball. But it's neither here nor there now. Like you said, you can't change anything that's already transpired in the game. You can only look to make improvements moving forward. So moving forward, the Spurs are going to have to play better, especially in that fourth and final quarter. That seems to be the troublesome quarter for the Spurs, and just these 7 games that they've played so far in the season. What do you think they're going to wind up doing in this next game? Do you think there are going to be any lineup changes?
Well, let's see here. We've got the Thunder on Thursday, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be any real lineup changes. Maybe swapping Derek and DeJounte is the only thing I could see.
Or
I
maybe
know,
putting them on the court at the same time.
They shared a little bit of court time today, just a touch. When DeJounte came out of the game for the first time, it was to sub White in, so we didn't get that kind of consistent carryover there. But it would be nice to see that. But you still have to. The problem is you're still working with the minutes restriction, and then I know that we want to talk about how Trae Young went off in the third and the fourth, but you still have to factor in that DeJounte and Derek didn't play a ton down the stretch. And those are your top 2 defenders. When you're talking about defense, having one of those guys out there, I think maybe keep a 5-point game. It's at least not as ugly of a loss. And I mean, I guess the people chiming in here, Joe, want to talk about it. maybe it's not a change in the second unit, but that first unit, LaMarcus Aldridge. I don't know how we're going to do better than LaMarcus Aldridge. I'd like to hear from. Do you think that LA should be demoted to the second unit, Joe? And if so, who's going to be put into the starting lineup for him?
I kind of thought about that. You know, we do have Jakob Portal. You have Shizemi Metu. You know, Shizemi's just been riding the pine pony. He really hasn't seen any minutes to speak of. You know,
None. Yeah.
none. He's just sitting there. You know, and
And I think he's actually hurt. I think he's actually hurt right now.
yeah, that's probably one of the reasons why he's not playing. But regardless, even if he was healthy, he probably still wouldn't have seen any minutes. You know, that's just the way the cookie
Right.
crumbles for him. You know, he really isn't a player that Coach Pop inserts in games for extended periods of time. You know, if he does, it's garbage minutes, end of quarters. You know, minute, 2, 3 minutes. You know, here or there. But like he always says, Coach Pop always says, if you're gonna get these minutes, make the most of your minutes. Lonnie Walker got a
Right.
full 2 minutes. You know, make the most of your minutes. It was only 2 minutes, so I mean, I don't think
I
he's
think he had a field goal and a turnover.
yeah, he hasn't really found a lot of favor with Coach Pop, you know, and I think Coach Pop needs to let him play. If you want him to get better, how do you expect him to get better if you never play him? You know, with my biggest fear with Lonnie is he's a fan favorite. He has a lot of potential, but he's a young player. You know, Coach Pop typically doesn't favor these younger players. He goes with his veterans. But if you have somebody who has the potential to be that a better player and fit in the Spurs system, and he's just there and not being utilized. When free agency hits, what do you think is going to happen? This young player is going to say, you know what, I don't want to be here anymore because I'd rather go maybe play for less money and be a starter and get the minutes I think I deserve, you know. And unfortunately, with the Spurs, because we have this plethora of guards here, and some of them are under. Let's be honest, some of these guards are undersized. Most of them are. There's just not a lot of
Yeah.
minutes to go around, you know, and that's just the way that things are right now. There's just a plethora of guards, not enough minutes to go around for everyone. But given the situation, if you want him to get better, play him. You know, maybe take some minutes away from Marco. You know, let maybe insert Lonnie early in the game. You know, maybe earlier in the first, maybe earlier in the second quarter. Then let Marco get those minutes in the third and fourth. But you have to do something to get him in the game. You can't just be so critical of him and then
So
not let him do anything.
so are you willing, Joe, to sacrifice a win for minutes for Lonnie?
Well, look what's happening right now. We're not sacrificing minutes for Lonnie. We're losing. I mean, you got to try something different. You know, I'm not saying that
Right,
Lonnie is the
but these
cure
guys
all.
but these guys out on the court are the ones that maybe because they're not gelling yet right now, that's why they need those minutes. And
Yeah,
so if you take those minutes away to develop these younger players, I think that's probably where Pop is sitting at.
yeah, he's got some tough decisions to make. You know, so we'll see what happens as this season transpires. But right now, the Spurs aren't looking too good. You know, they're kind of looking mediocre, and you know they look good starting the writing out of the gate. You know, they were like 3-0, they were undefeated, and then they started going up against some of the upper echelon teams of the Western Conference and the Clippers and the Lakers. You know, and they were competitive, but they just didn't have
What
that punch to get over the hump.
which is why I don't think that they're kind of mediocre. I think that they're just a mirror team at this point. I think as addressed before, again, just to go back to Wesley's statement, they're just playing to the level of the competition. So if we go through a stretch where we've got the Thunder and then we have the Celtics coming up, and they're playing okay right now. And then the game on Monday, I can't even think of who we're playing on Tony's retirement night at this moment, but you're going to have to light your own fire, as far as the Spurs go. They have to want this a little bit more.
Yeah, that they do, and you just need to see. Like I said, it all boils down to them just playing more consistent basketball. You can't play up to the level of your competition. You just have to find a way to be consistent, night in and night out, to be able to to garner these wins, especially on the road. So early in the season, it's only 7 games in. I know that we're all disappointed. We're very critical of the team because we
You're
are
disappointed.
yeah, we're
I'm not very disappointed.
well, I am because I had higher expectations, especially knowing that you have the return of Dejounte. But with this minutes restrictions, it does limit what
Right.
he can do out there. So we're only 7 games
I'm
in.
disappointed in tonight's loss, though.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. I'm sure Pop is gonna say something as well. What he's gonna probably say at the end of the game, which he's probably already talked to the press already, he's gonna be disappointed in the effort. You know, he won. If they would have lost the game, but they had put forth a better effort, he would have been able to live with the L. You know, he would have been able to say it's a loss, but I like the effort. The disappointment
Right.
stems from the lack of the effort that was put out there tonight, especially in the fourth quarter.
I hear you.
Oh my
I got
goodness.
no argument with
Yeah.
that.
Well, we're gonna go ahead and end this show on that note. You know, I'm gonna be disappointed, and we're gonna see what everybody else is saying here on Spurs Twitter. I'm sure that everybody is gonna be very vocal and very critical of the team. They're gonna be wanting to trade LaMarcus and Demar, and you know, who knows who else. Marco, you know,
Right.
he's fallen out of favor with the fans. They love and hate him. You know, as long as as well as with Lamar and Demar. So it's kind of a love-hate relationship that we've had with these players over the
But
course
it's
of the last couple seasons.
but it's really simple. It's really simple. It's all you got to do is produce.
Yeah.
And right now, the only person producing is Demar. I think tonight brings that his points average up for the season back to closer to 20. I think it had dropped below 20 with a couple slow nights. But yeah, and buckle up because I don't think we're doing any trades. I don't.
No.
I think this is the team that we're gonna roll with, and they'll gel together. It'll get better. Just a little bit of patience.
Yeah, that they will. Yeah, I don't expect them to make any trades either at the trade deadline. Uh, Frank Ramirez says, "Good night, guys." He's I think one of the guys that uh, tunes in from Cali. So good night to you, Frank. We'll see you later, bud. Hey, and Jonas, before we end this stream, where can the people go and find you on social media?
It's at Jark Clonas on Twitter. JARKCLONAS.
Yeah, and you all got to go and check out those pictures that I saw of Jonas circulating, of him in his Renaissance gear because he was at the Renaissance Festival. Jonas is a badass, man. He was in full costume, man. He was looking like he was somebody straight out of the Game of Thrones, man. You had the sword and everything, but I was kind of jealous, man.
That's my whole side deal. I'm kind of that guy in high school who was right below the road guy. I didn't quite fit all the way in with the jocks, and I didn't quite fit in all the way with the nerds, but I could talk to both sides of the aisle there.
There you go, man. So you got to check that out. Some good stuff, man. Jonas out there doing his best Jon Snow impersonation. Shout out to you, Jonas Clark. I know I did Wesley proud
And
with that
like
Game of
Jon
Thrones
Snow,
reference.
I know nothing.
Yeah, Wesley does. Wesley's a big time Game of Thrones guy, so I know he's gonna be watching this and he's gonna be laughing his ass off, man. So we'll go ahead and end the stream on that note. You can follow me, Two Shots Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and it's all spelled out: TWOSHOTS Podcast. And I'm getting close to 3,000 followers out on Twitter, man. So if y'all can just go and give me a like, I think I was like 6 likes away or 6 follows away from hitting 3,000. It's
Good
just a little
luck.
milestone I want. Just a little milestone I want. Not begging, not begging. I'm just asking if it would be so kind for you to go and hit that follow button. I would really appreciate that. So for Jonas Clark, I'm Joe Garcia. Thank you for watching another episode of the Spurs Takeover. And make sure you go and follow our friends over at Project Spurs. They're on social media as well, on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram. And also go to projectspurs.com for all your latest San Antonio Spurs news. So we'll see you guys later, and go Spurs go.